visionary, an entrepreneur, a business owner. You want to make money from your passion and create the freedom that you've dreamed of. But it's slow. The income is slow, the impact is slow, and the freedom is slow. And here's the kicker. You've actually never been busier. You're working longer than ever, burning through daylight, and your family have forgotten who you are. You're tired and frustrated and you can't even sleep well at night. The business just feels so heavy, and all you ever wanted to do was just make the money you want to make doing the things that you want to do. And that's where I come in. Hi, if we haven't met yet, my name is Dr. Brooklyn Storme, and I'm the host of the Business Acceleration Podcast, where we shift your business from heavy to light, time poor to time abundant, and from income lack to income growth. We're going to achieve it together with my 20 years experience as a psychologist, helping people just like you to break through their barriers. And we're going to throw in a little of the woo as well. So thank you so much for pushing play today. Let's begin. Welcome to another episode of the Business Acceleration Podcast. I'm so pleased that you're here today because we're going to be talking about money. And money is, it's so much fun once you know how to play with it and once you understand the energy behind it. And this is so important for your business because if you're not making money, then you're not in business, right? You just have a fun hobby that's probably taking up a lot of your time. Okay, so what I wanted to do today was work through some of the more common money mindset challenges that people experience. And these have come up with coaching clients in the past. So you may be able to relate to them. What I'm going to do is sort of present them one at a time and then we'll talk through belief. But before I do all that, let me tell you a little bit about my background with money. So, as you know, when I was growing up, we didn't have much money at all. In fact, we were living below the poverty line. And what I learned about money from that experience was that only rich people have money. Money is the root of all evil. The money comes in and the money goes out again. There's never enough money to go around, and it's really hard to save. Money is for rich people, and rich people are mean and they hoard it and they don't share it and they just take money away from poor people. That was my experience. That was what I learned about money as a little girl growing up right through to adolescence and then into early adulthood. I carried all of those beliefs with me because nobody had ever stopped me along the way and suggested that perhaps there was something a little bit faulty with the way that I was viewing money. Nobody ever said that. And my limiting beliefs around money manifested in all sorts of different ways. So when I started doing things like having a business, I had issues around things like charging people. So in the beginning, I wasn't charging people for my services. When I became aware that I needed to, I felt guilty about that. I questioned my worth. I questioned whether or not they would want to pay me. I questioned whether or not I was doing enough for the money. I questioned all sorts of things. And then what happened as a result of that is when people did start to say, I don't know if I want to pay that, then I would go back to, that's okay, then it's free, it's free, it's free. And this was all coming from those limiting money beliefs that I had. The other thing that happened in my business was I did get a lot of outstanding debt that was never collected because I felt guilty collecting money for work that I'd done for clients that had agreed to pay me, even coaching clients that owed me money. And so my limiting beliefs around money impacted the bottom line of my business as well. The other thing that used to happen was I would receive a bill and I would have a really big reaction to it. I would have an over-the-top reaction looking back, but at the time I felt very justified in it. I would either get really upset and cry, or I'd get really angry, or I would start to say the things that other people had said to me about money when I was growing up. And I would say, people just always take money from you. It's so hard to get ahead. Yeah, that was one of my big ones. It's really hard to get ahead. It doesn't matter how hard I work, I just never have any money. And it wasn't until I started learning more about manifestation and applying tools that I already knew from psychology in different ways to shift my mindset, that then I was able to realize I'd been living other people's money stories and not my own. And I picked up these money stories from caregivers, from teachers, from authority figures, from role models. I'd picked up everybody else's story and run with it, never questioning. I just thought that was what you do when you get a bill, or, this is how it works with your money. It's not like that. What I understand money is now is I get to choose my own story about money. And since I've been able to do that, I have to say it was hard initially letting go of some of my behaviors around money, like letting go of feeling anger around a bill, or letting go of feeling slighted or cheated around a bill and having to pay money and things like that was really hard for me initially. But I was able to try it anyway, and when I did, what ended up happening was I felt a lot lighter. And then I thought, well, what was the big deal? Like, why on earth was I carrying on like I have been all this time about money? And since I've got to that space, everything's kind of changed, and I feel really calm about money now. It doesn't bother me when I get a bill now, and it doesn't bother me charging my fees now. It doesn't bother me when clients say, oh, well, that's too expensive. That's fine. I think there are always going to be people that find the money, and there are always going to be people who don't see the value in what you do. And it's never about the fee that I'm charging, and it's not about the fee that you're charging either. It's about how you convey the value, and it's about how that person is perceiving the value. Nobody's buying your offer or your service. They're buying the solution. So if somebody's saying it's too much money, then probably 9 out of 10, the chances are that you just haven't done a good job of communicating why your solution is valuable to that person. But anyway, being able to work through my limiting beliefs around money, and honestly, I never used to think that I had any until I started doing all this stuff about manifesting, has brought me to a new place of peace and calm, and I love dealing with money. I have no issues paying bills. I have no issues paying team members. I have no issues paying utilities and for resources and workshops and all that sort of stuff. I'm fine doing that. I see it differently, and I'm going to teach you about some of the common beliefs that I and other people I've worked with have had, and how we work through them so that maybe these things can help you too. So the first thing is, this idea that money is a limited resource. That comes up a lot. Oh, maybe there's not enough to go around. I would say, well, actually, there is enough money to go around for people who choose to look for it, or for people who choose to call it in, or for people who choose to train their mind to see it. What you focus on grows. And so if you're focusing on money coming in, then you're going to see more money coming in. So it's around shifting your mindset. I would say, you know your worth, and you know that you bring value to the table. But maybe you could ask yourself, how can I express my value to others in a way that helps them to understand how I help them? Okay, so it comes back to what we were saying before about people not buying your program. It's not about how much the fee is. People not buying your program is because they don't understand the value of your solutions. So ask yourself, how can you express that to them in a way that conveys that it is valuable, that they absolutely need it, that you have what they need? The next thing too is I have to work hard for money. And this was one that I personally had to work through. You will know if you've been following me for a little while on social media and also listening to the podcast that I used to work ridiculously long hours and book in ridiculous numbers of clients. I've never had an issue finding people to fill my diary. It's been fine. But I used to work crazy long hours, and I used to think I had to do that if I wanted to be successful in business. And part of being successful in business for me was turning over enough money to pay the bills, enough money to pay myself, etc., etc., etc. So I did used to subscribe to that mindset. And what ended up happening was I was working my butt off and not getting anywhere with the money. What I understand now is that there's absolutely no correlation between how hard I work and the money coming in. For example, I went to Hawaii on a holiday this year and I was still working and I was still making $200 for quick phone calls with coaching clients. I was still making $500 for longer phone calls with coaching clients. So I still did a little bit of work while I was on my holiday, and I made the same amount of money that I would work when I'm back at the office working a full week. So you can absolutely make the same money, if not more, and do less. And so this is something that you can try and shift your mindset with, and you can say to yourself, well, what would I need to do differently with my work to make it feel a lot lighter for me? What could I step back in order to allow more money to come in? What could I let go of? Another one that comes up is the idea of I don't deserve money. And this is really common, especially with a lot of the women that I've worked with. There's this sense that they're not enough or that they're not worthy. And I'm here to challenge that. I want you to think, we spoke about the be, do, have model. Zig Ziglar developed this back in the 60s and refined it in the 70s. And this is something that is very, very powerful. It's this whole idea of who do you need to be in order to have X, Y, and Z. So who do you need to be in order to embody that belief or that value of deserving money? Okay, what does a deserving person look like? And guys, here's the thing. You're already deserving. Okay, everybody in the whole wide world is deserving of money, and you are no exception to that. But if you believe that you don't deserve it, it's not going to flow your way, and that will show up for you in the business. It'll show up for you when you don't introduce a fee. It will show up for you when you don't charge your worth. It will show up for you when you undercharge and nobody buys. Nobody's buying because they're suspicious about why your price is so low. Things like that. It will show up in your marketing. So start affirming that of course you're enough and of course you're worthy. Everybody's worthy. It's a God-given right that you're worthy. Okay, it's like done. It's not even a thing. So, all right. The next one is, people say to me, "Oh, you have to be born rich, or I wasn't born into money. That's not me. That's not who I am. I'm never going to be that person." What about asking yourself, how can I create my own destiny, and how can I create a financial destiny where I get to choose the destination where we're heading, and I get to develop the map for how I'm going to get there. I get to plug into my energetic GPS. This is the financial goal I'm striving for. And I get to plug in to my GPS the alternate path that I want to take that feels easiest for me and lightest for me in order to be able to get there. There's another one that says, well, it's really greedy to want money, Brooklyn, and so I don't want to raise my fees. I don't want to start charging this much money because that's just greedy, and I'm not a greedy person. And greedy people are icky and mean and selfish and horrible, and that's not me. So if you're telling me I need to do more with my money, you're telling me I need to be that person, and no, I'm not having it. I want to say to you, what about this? What about when you make more money, you get to help more people. When you have more resources, you get to help more people. What opportunities would open up for you to help more people if you had the money to do it? If you had the money to do it, what would you be doing differently in your business that could help more people that are your audience or that are your ideal client? Okay, ask yourself that. Something else that comes up, people say, well, if I've got more money, I'm going to have more problems, so I'm just going to stay where I am. I think, well, what doors could open up for you if you had more money? It's kind of like before. What would it mean for your business and what would it mean for your clients? I think when you've got more money, instead of more problems, you've got more choices. What can you choose to do if you knew that money was not a limiting factor? If there were no money limitations, how would you show up differently in your business? What would you provide differently to your clients? Where's the gap between that version of your business and where your business is now? And how would having money allow you to close that gap? What outcomes would you be getting when you're able to provide more of the things that you want to provide just because you have this abundance of resources? Okay? Another thing that comes up is people have a perception that rich people lack integrity. This isn't about being rich, but this is just, a term that comes up. Rich people lack integrity. Okay, fine. If that's what you want to think, that's what you want to think. But I don't believe that all rich people lack integrity. We know there are millions of people who are rich and philanthropic. I mean, Richard Branson comes to mind. He's, very philanthropic and transparent about how he shares wealth and distributes wealth and gives other people opportunities so that they can lift themselves up and be heard and have a voice and do all of those amazing things. Why shouldn't you be allowed to do that too? You can. I think instead of saying to yourself, well, rich people lack integrity, why don't you say, how can I maintain integrity while creating wealth in my business? How can I remain authentic to my values? How can I stay aligned with my purpose and aligned with my vision and still make the money? How can I do that? And when you ask yourself these questions, more things will open up for you, more things will become apparent for you, and you will start to see how you can show up differently, who you need to become, how you need to be in the business to create this for yourself. So listen, money mindset is absolutely essential to a profitable private practice, to a profitable business, no matter whereabouts in the journey of the business that you are. And this is something that many business owners experience, this difficulty wrapping their mind around money. And so they come along for coaching for help with this. And you can come along for coaching for help with this too. We've got the new program starting in January, and, you can apply or accept in applications, and I would love to help you with it. It's only one of many things that can be a real challenge, but once you can find your peace with the money and you can see that it doesn't have any power over you unless you give it that power, unless you see that the money can be used to help more people and it can be used to further your vision and further your dream and further your purpose, and it can actually bring your business into better alignment with what the vision of the business is, then everything is going to shift for you. And I would love to help you with that. What I would suggest you do from here is listen to this podcast again, but this time with a pen and paper. I've asked a bunch of questions throughout, and it can be really helpful sometimes to write those questions out as little journal prompts for yourself, and then sit down with a refreshment and write out your responses to those and just see what comes up. Okay, I want you to have that experience of a shift. I want you to have that experience of a transformation. And that's why I'm putting these podcasts together. If you do experience a shift, if you have a light bulb moment, let me know. Leave a review on iTunes. And I want to say thank you so much to everybody that has left one. It has meant the world to me. When reviews come on, it means that more people get to see the podcast, which means I can achieve one of my goals, which is aligned with my value of wanting to help more people. So I want to thank you now and give you gratitude for that. Thank you so much for listening. Go and get a glass of water and a pen and paper. Listen to this podcast again. Write down your questions. Journal through the answers and see what happens, and get in touch with me. I would love to hear your breakthroughs. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you later. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for listening today. I really hope that you enjoyed it and got a lot of value from it. Help me help others by sharing this podcast. And if you feel called to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, remember to let me know so that I can send you a very special thank you gift. Now go and build your dream business, and I will see you next time. Bye.